Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find his and herself to America in the bottom of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And with all the information, with all the news that is going out now, there's a whole bunch of things going on in the Indigenous community. A lot of the things that's going on, it seems that it's aimed directly at us. And that's always the case is when, you know, we have to be confused. And a lot of times in that confusion, it's us that does a lot of the confusion to keep us confused. Well, tonight we're going to look at the African Americans' fingerprints all over what's going on today and what you can do and what we can do to avoid these downfalls, to present the facts, to open up your eyes to what's going on. And I already know that most of you already know what's going on. Is a young brother in the community, Tyron Lou. What's going on, brother?
What's good, Kerry Davis? And tonight we're going to have a special guest on by the name of Alquan, also known as Hard Cold. But I'd like to talk about these 3 points that's been puzzling me for the past few months and weeks coming up, especially about last night with the topic of hats, nets, and the Wrath of Khan. And we had like an intriguing dialogue with a woman of Tengu heritage and also a Pan African Freemason that stopped by that we had a discussion with. So, our points tonight would be why are Negroes so adamant at preserving things outside themselves that has nothing to do with them personally? The second topic is Maroon, FBA, ADOS, and even some Aboriginal American Indians in the paradigm are still pseudo Pan African Black supremacists. And three, Wakanda Forever and the Mam King Tengu entertainment propaganda.
Hey, what's up? Hello?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Chilling.
Welcome to the program, man. Hey, you doing, Alberta?
Right before I came on, this fire alarm was coming on from another apartment. I was like, oh boy. Smoke detector, that is. Yeah, so what's up?
Yeah, tonight's topic is why are Negroes so adamant at preserving things outside of themselves that has nothing to do with them personally? Like the last live that you did, such as the hats, nets, and the Rapacan, where you have individuals trying to take up for American Aborigines such as Kyrie Irving, Kanye West, and now apparently Dave Chappelle, who are being called out for anti-Tengu behavior because of this movie that came out 2 years ago called N2H, Hebrews to Negroes. And you have Kanye spouting out all types of things about Tengus with his business deals and them calling him crazy for saying all these things about Tengus and why he can't have his business, whereas Tengus are raping him literally with his own money and business ventures.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about these people. They're quick to sell out, but this is always the celebrity. It's never the unknown person. So, you got to play the game for their money. And that includes everything, creating a phantom enemy, they want to act like they're being oppressed, but I always ask them, name your oppressor. We can name ours, but can they name theirs? And they can't. The only thing they ever talk about when it's time for oppression is they got to go back to World War II. They can't go before that. They can't go after that. And even that is extremely questionable, to say the least. And I'm trying to be careful with the language. So, it's crazy. Then you got that Dr. Ma'at. That's going to be the next Prime Cuts.
Yeah, and that's a part of point 1 and 2, which is why are Negroes so adamant at preserving historical narrative and things that are outside themselves instead of claiming what they know and stick to the rivers that they're used to.
Right.
What did you come up with when you asked yourself that?
That's for Tehran or for me? Hello?
I'm assuming it's for both of us.
Oh, okay.
So I'll allow you to go first, Alquan.
Oh, okay. What I come up with is they're reading from a script prepared to them by the Small Hat. And the connection is red, black, and green. I don't even want to call them, I'll call them affiliates because they don't seem to be all on one accord, except Pan-Africanism, Marcus Garvey, and everybody's an African, whether you like it or not. But when you saw that video with Bomani, I had to ask him, how come you guys don't pressure the Hispanics?
And for those who are not familiar with Bomani or what's that individual?
Caligenesis.
Caligenesis, or most people might know Brandon from Pan-Africanism Strikes Back that we discussed last video I was here, or his other whole camp with Afro Think Tank, or Ma'at Forever, the BAIO, Dynastamir, and individuals like American Riflemen, those type of weirdos that want to convince Black Americans that the only way for us to succeed in life is to be pseudo conservative and also pseudo Pan-African, pseudo Africans.
Yeah, that's exactly a great description. Pseudo Africans, because all they do is they created their own makeshift African. That the African, they don't even know who the hell these people are that these people keep talking about.
What do they say when you ask them, well, what are the incoming Africans? Because we have a lot of immigrants here now. So what do they say when about that? Are those their people coming over to help them? Are they in some kind of group, American and African conglomerate, kind of like the Black Panthers are trying to do with those?
So what they are doing is they claim to have business. It's mostly Caribbeans or domestic Black Americans that see themselves as African slaves, and they're having business ventures, so-called business ventures in the African continent, claiming that they have land and resources for Black Americans to go over there and exploit, and that they're doing businesses with random Africans and having like shacks made out of concrete and animals living out of them, and they're claiming everything's fine and swell, and that it's a wonderful place to build and have infrastructure for Black America, while Africans are coming over here and eating off of your heritage and claiming to be you.
Right. The only thing is they don't say that last part, though. Of course, they don't want to say that. But they that's what it is. They want us to. It's the same thing with the Marcus Garvey scam.
Or the Liberia and Sierra Leone scams that were before them during slavery.
They try to get us to get out of here so they can come in. So they like to bypass the fact that Africans come here and come to other white man countries, because obviously Africa is not happening in that way. It's happening now. Africa's happening for people who are coming from Asia and Europe, who were trying to take over Africa and make it happen. I was on a YouTube channel. I forgot the name of the guy. He showed a video about Madagascar, and the narrator where he got the video from, she kept calling them a blend of African and Austronesian. I'm like, I mean, that ain't what the hell they are. I mean, they're a blend of African and Indonesian. I'm like, where they get this ostrich stuff?
I would say that they're a blend of two Negroes, one that is indigenous to Asia and one that is indigenous to Africa.
Yeah, but see, they try to mislead because it's clearly in Mongol Indonesian mixture. You can even look at the current president of Madagascar, and there ain't no question about that. I mean, if you just showed a picture of the current president of Madagascar and didn't tell anybody where he was from, you would assume somewhere out in Asia. But see, those people kept in the comment section, and this is what I learned about a lot of these African people or African thinking people. They say, oh, those are such beautiful people. I'm like, yeah, it's because they're mixed, right? They're mixed with Mongol Asian. So, and you see their hair is different. So you guys kind of like that. And they say African people are beautiful. Then they make excuses when you point out, well, that's a Asian mix. But then these same people will tell you that a biracial is not black. You know, they're hypocrites on what they say, and they can't stick to what they say.
So why do you think it's taken so long for us just to understand certain points about ourselves over here in America? Why is that taking forever?
To put it lightly, to tie it into like the Pan-African and the Hebrew Israelite stuff, if you have noticed, like with this Hebrews to Negroes thing, how everyone's making a whole rigmarole hullabaloo about Negroes being Jew, the real Jews, and if you actually watch the documentary, it talks about placing the Negro as Hebrew Israelites in Africa rather than how people within the same Aboriginal community claims that the Hebrew tales took place over here, when in reality it's allegory, and it has nothing to do with a physical place but the body, as I'm quoting Safa Karu in his postulation about this Hebrew identity and the God's chosen people theory.
Yep. I mean, the Pan-Africanism, that is, whether it's overt or covert, because there are a lot of people who won't call themselves a Pan-Africanist, don't wear the red, black, and green, but they kind of repeat a lot of the themes, such as we come from Africa, we're all the same people, and they don't really do the research. And Pan-Africans, they don't do the proper research. They only know the script that is presented to them, because when we go on their forums, they know very little about Africa.
Since you bring that up, it's funny how that individual that came on the show last night, he wanted to be Tariq Nasheed FBA or ADOS, but denied being a follower of Tariq Nasheed and Yvette Carnell or Antonio Moore, when these individuals that came about with reparations claims against the government and wanted to charge the government or small hats or Europeans in general to pay a price for the legacy of alleged African chattel slaves being brought here on a wooden boat. They decide not to put in work and do the research, and all this momentum came off of them wanting to eat off the how should I put it? They wanted to eat off the success and the momentum of the American Indian or Aboriginal ideological paradigm without shouting out any people that found this information, or they'll just put it out and don't even add context to this information. They just go with the flow and act like as if they're presenting it from their own like boots on the ground research.
And they don't even know what they're talking about.
Or secondary source, and not knowing what they're talking about. and they don't even agree with the information themselves, but want to preserve the African slave ship story along with having one foot in the Aboriginal door.
Right. And you notice, like with that guy's logo seemed familiar to me. I checked his channel out while he was on last night. It doesn't seem to be as my forever would say. His channel doesn't seem to be popping. But you know, um, the funny part is, the way you can always shut these people down, and we did that the other night. Is you always ask them to find me just one slave ship.
So
That that always stumps them.
this transitions into Maroon, FBA, ADOS, and even the Aboriginal American Indian paradigm, where individuals are still in the Pan-African Black supremacist mindset of things.
Yeah, but once you ask them to find that one slave ship, see, then their minds start churning when they realize, man, really can't find it. That's what happened to me. Because I tell people to believe me when I say this. I was very sincere. I just wanted to look it up and find the slave ship to see, what kind of conditions were on this. And I just had a hard time finding one. I kept saying to myself, man, how come I can't find it? So that made me more determined to want to find one. And I couldn't find one. But yet, when I wanted to look up the conditions, the Roman ships, how they built their swords and everything else, the clothing, I can easily find all that kind of stuff. I'm like, how could I find stuff from 2,000 years ago, but not from 200 years ago? That makes no sense. I mean, you literally, matter of fact, I was looking up medieval clothing a few months ago. They have it so well preserved that even though the clothing looks wild in the paintings, but still elaborate, when you see the actual clothing is nicely tailored, precisely tailored, and it looks cool. Matter of fact, it looks like if you were back in those days and you had them, you'd be like, man, I'm looking fly, But you can't find a slave ship, and that should be very telling to you because that is the main thing. The slave ship. That's how we were supposed to have gotten over here. That was the number one business. That's another thing they always say. That was the number one business for the white man. Now, if that was the number one business, where are the parts of doing business at? Now, when you say there was a World War II or World War One, and that was big business, you could find all the artifacts. And a lot of them are still on the ground. They still unearth exploded bombs to this day. How come you could do that? They have to answer that question. But you notice, Tyron, they can never answer that question.
Never. So, what are your thoughts, Kerry, on like how the clip that you've seen of Alquan show with the Pan African individual? What were your initial thoughts when you first heard the video of I and Alquan trying to explain to him that with the point of reference with the Aboriginal American or American Indian paradigm, and he couldn't agree with anything but try to Africanize words and try to use political correctness to get his point across. What would you have to say about that?
Well, it just happens, with a lot of, them, because I ask questions, man. If you out here spewing this stuff to these kids, and when I say kids, I'm normally with people 30 and under, because by the time you're 40, you can't afford to be dumb. And when I be hearing these brothers talk like that, all they're doing is bringing confusion. They can't explain what they don't even explain what they read. And I always notice that they're always telling me when I ask them a question, brother, you just got to study. Brother, you just got to do your research. And I'm like, don't you think that's how you got in the position that you are now, listening and verifying what somebody else told you when you didn't even think about it yourself? And then the name calling. Damn, dude. Why?
He called the brother's mother a bitch and he disrespected my own relatives.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, man. It's like them cats. I don't. I wouldn't even talk to them because you're not getting nothing out of it. Because
Believe it or not, we are though, because when they fail to answer questions and all they can do is go down to insults, that's really telling the audience a whole lot about what these people are really all about.
right. But if people are turning into that, if people are turning into him, listening to that stuff, they're on that vibe.
Yeah,
You know.
and or they'll censor and mute you like this Matt Forever character.
Well,
Oh,
well,
you should have
well,
tuned into that video, Carrie, because you would have been laughing your ass off with that.
well, that's what I'm saying, and that's why nothing gets. Everybody just wants to play and shine, and it's like you never can get. You know, it's only a few people you can talk to, and get them to see what you're saying. Because I'm saying, man, the African American man, they've been brutalized mentally.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the main thing is that's been doing the brutalization is that Pan African craziness and the NAACP acting as a makeshift black power or black the backbone of black people, even though it's not our thing.
Yes.
Well,
And could you in your
let me just speak to the chat for a minute. I
okay.
put, I put the link in to the chat StreamYard. So if anybody want to call in and give their thoughts on this, all this confusions, you're welcome. There's the link right there. I just posted. So go ahead, guys.
So, in your opinion, could you define to us, with all these movements coming about that's trying to like hang off the coattails of the American Aboriginal experience, could you define what would a Maroon or FBA or ADOS be? Because
It's
these are the people that are shaping African Americans towards reparations and claiming something, but they don't have a right place of like standing to organize themselves.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's just to bring utter confusion. That's all. Because the African American can't even define himself. He's always taking somebody else's definition of him and trying to make a claim. That won't work. And it's just as simple as, what did your people call themselves? Simple question. What
Was
is your
it the word slave? Did people identify themselves as slaves in your experience of speaking with your relatives or people, many other people in your work? Have you ever heard them refer to themselves as being slaves or foundational blacks or uh,
no, no, that's
maroons?
that's what I'm saying. Those are terms when people tell you, you go study for yourself. Those the terms that you find out. All this stuff is written for the I can't go over to China and do what the Chinese people do because they're connected to that land over there. I can't go over to Australia and do what those people do because they have a culture and a way they live with life over there. And so what we try to fit ourselves into it, and it's embarrassing. And this has been going on. This African thing has been going on at least for almost the past 35 years. So that means there's a couple of generations all the way in it. And as you can tell with the incoming Africans, the new immigrants coming over, they don't look at it the way you do.
Right. Like I've always argued for the longest time that Africans aren't concerned with Pan Africanism, and they're not concerned with whatever these agent RGBs keep talking about. Only recently did a few start jumping on that, and I think that's because they're part of the little branding going to Africa business stuff. So they figured they get a little bit of Africans in on the mix. And all they do when you hear them, all they do is repeat the same old script that those people taught them. And you can tell that they don't believe in it. But then when you hear the East Africans, Somali, Ethiopians, Eritreans speak on uh, Africa or Black Americans and Caribbeans, you see the language is quite different.
There's a lot of hate speech. And also, what would you say about like the infighting amongst the Aboriginal community? Like people, once they get their information from like, or I would say this, if they get around these Fed recognized individuals and gain certain knowledge, all of a sudden they betray their own community after like they've been using the same information that we have been using within this community. Would you have something to say about that too?
I mean, all that. Look, man, just find out who your folks are. I mean, it's that simple. This stuff isn't like nuclear physics or anything like that. All you do is just trace your bloodline back to where your people come out of. It's that simple. Why? And and that's the point I want to have you on. What's the point? Why are we making all of these going around all of that? You got towns, you got cities all over this country named after the people who live there. We can't go back. We can't do that. And no, we can't. I mean, we got to try to show, I don't know what it is, but it's showing how ignorant we are by like always arguing and fussing and cussing each other out. Dude, I mean, really? And that's where we are.
Yep. And the cussing people out, obviously that's a cover for their lack of knowledge. So
yeah, and these are the type of people that want restitution for the damages of what their ancestors went through. How are you going to be able to put yourself in that type of place of getting your tangibles or whatnot, but you're over here infighting on what we should identify as, and you're arguing with people and discrediting any basis of you getting that restitution because you don't want to look into your own family genealogy. You don't want to talk to relatives. You just want to hold your hat on some fantasy information.
Right. The stuff that the white man told them.
So check this out. So this is how it happened. So let's say you get a court date for reparation. You go into court and you're making this demand, you want reparations. You know what's going to be the first thing the people you're suing going to say? Well, how come when slavery was going on, you guys were fighting with us against other countries? You wasn't fighting us against slavery. You were fighting us when slavery was going on. What do you think the FBA or all these Hebrew, what do you think they're going to say? I got your people in bondage, but you joining my army to go help me fight somebody else. This is the first day of court. What do you think the Negro will say?
Well, I'll say, in all fairness, though, we were kind of fighting on every side: Confederate, Union, British. so
we was on the Confederate money. Right. They put our face on the money.
Right. So if you're going to get somebody did you wrong, you're going to get your reparations. They're going to come back to you and say, yeah, but we had you in slavery, but we also had you fighting for us.
What did it do?
The small hats own their ass, right?
Let's not bring nobody else into it because that's where we get lost. We're talking
that's the next point.
We're talking about us.
All
and
right.
see, that's what we do when we try to get off of us. We try to start talking about something else.
Yeah.
And that's how the Negro always escapes and nothing never gets solved. You said that you were slaves, but you were in the Revolutionary War, Civil War, you in the wars now. You always helping your people enslaved, but you helping the people who are enslaving your people fight other people. Explain.
Well, definitely during slavery times, I don't think too many had too much of a choice, but
heck, wounded me.
Before
colonialism with the Moors helping colonize America, you had Estebanico messing with the Navajo allegedly.
So that's what I'm saying. That's just when these guys talk, man. When they speak, all it does is bring confusion
That's true. I agree with you. But see,
because they
here's
don't
the
know what they're talking about. It's like you said, you're on the money in the 1860s. Who put slaves on money?
African slaves at that.
No, these wasn't Africans.
But
These
they'll claim that they are. They'll claim that they happy African slaves.
and that's another thing. How do you look at Africans and look at Americans and not notice a difference?
they do. Matter of fact, that's what Pan Africanists they always play that game. Oh man, I can't tell the difference. This look like a brother in Harlem. I'm like, man, in Harlem, you can
No,
tell an
no,
African from a black
no. You
American.
you just ask them a simple question, and soon as you ask the question, you'll get the answer. Don't wait for them to lie. All you do is ask them, do the African women look like their grandmothers?
Hmm. Sometimes it's all right to wait for them to lie because as long as you know what they're about to say, then you can
Oh,
set them up.
you know what they're gonna say because they're liars. They're dumb. We just like to love everybody and kiss everybody in the ass. No.
And then
Ask them a simple-
they'll reply and say, "Oh, why don't your grandma look like this Mongol native here in the teepee?"
Yeah.
Well, they like to conflate the what is a Native American on purpose. But see, when it comes to the African thing, oh, they're all the same, even though you can visually see that they're not exactly the same. They're all similar, but they're not exactly the same because if they were exactly the same, you wouldn't be able to tell a Somali from a Nigerian, you know?
No, no. So I mean, that's why you got to come up with your own question because they don't think. So just ask them, okay, which African group over here is telling you to plan what's going on in Africa so we can make that break. Ask
Good.
them, ask them questions that they don't never heard because they really sound stupid. And these youngsters, okay, you understand how the earth works. It contracts and it expands, right?
Yes.
Just
Like a
like
lung
yeah, like your lungs.
or your heart.
With what's going on in the world right now, would you say the earth is expanding or the earth is caving in?
I would say caving in.
It's caving in. It's contracting. All this stuff you see all over the world happening is contracting. Sooner or later, it's going to expand again. You better be ready for that. It's going to expand again. And if you're walking around doing that goofy stuff that you're doing now, you're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place. Because see what they're doing to all the masses now. A lot of the people are waking up. Unfortunately, the Negro over here isn't. They still going on cruises, going to Vegas, having fun,
Going to the
Wow.
Caribbean.
Well,
Going to Africa.
yeah, wow. You have water problems. You have water problems in Mississippi where a lot of people are from. The average Negro don't even think about that. Don't care. Here we have a caller joining. This is getting to the root. What's going on, brother?
Hello, how you guys doing today?
Great.
You guys are making a lot of valid points. I just want to speak on the fact that those Africans that they speak of, 90% of those Africans were captured Europeans that was brought into America. Now,
They don't acknowledge that because they'll argue you
right.
down and say, "Oh, what about the Africans that went to Brazil and the Caribbean? And I don't see no white slaves here. It's nothing but Africans."
Well, there were white slaves in all
Or
these
they'll
different places.
ignore
That's how
Indians
they
in the
end up
shadow
in.
too.
Well, that's how they all ended up in these different places. You know, um, it's plenty documents showing that all these people were they were white slaves. The whole term slave it derives from the Slavic people, right? On the other hand, it also derives from the word Christian. Christian and slave is the same. It's anonymous. They two are the same words. Now, when you hear about these slave narratives, right? They always talk about these slave narratives and these people that was in slavery. They have talk about what they experienced during the slavery experience, right? Well, the slaves never depict what the masters look like. They never say my master is white or my master looks like Caucasian, because the term white and black didn't even have no relevance at that time. You know what I'm saying? You either was free or you was a slave. It's either or, right? So the problem that I have with the whole reparation stuff and all that is that they can't determine who's the masters. We find now that a lot of the Confederates were these so-called Negro masters. But when it comes to the slave narratives, they never say, hey, my master is Negro. They
So
never
you
say
say,
that my master is.
hold on. This brings into mind like Indian, Black American Indian deniers like Henry Louis Gates coming out of the woodwork talking about, oh, Native Americans own a whole bunch of African slaves. So that means y'all, none of you Negroes were American Indian. Y'all are all just mixed Bantus from off of Anthony Browder and Tariq Nasheed's buck breaking sex farm mythologies on how they built up a whole entire hemisphere of African Bantus, replacing a diminishing Mongol exclusive Native America theory. But the American Indian was the slave before Africans got brought into the 13 colonies and even the Caribbean and Latin America. But we never hear any of these so-called Native Americans on a reservation talk about, oh, my grandma was a slave and she was used to breed a whole bunch of Zambo babies with this Bantu buck from the Congo or Angola or something like that. They never say anything like that. It's always, oh, we was braves and y'all was slaves.
Remember, the white man said that the Mongol native got killed off because he couldn't fight the diseases that the white man brought, but somehow the African was able to do it. and you know, I'm like, if you invade a land and the people are there, you know, and you defeated them in war, why not enslave them? What makes you see? It's stupid to say, okay, well, you know what? Okay, they're dying from disease. I have
now
a good
this
idea.
Transitions into
Let's get an African.
This transitions into Wakanda and the man queen Tengu entertainment industry, where they bring out like movies revising the history of Black Americans. You have a movie coming out by Will Smith where he's using an African accent, revising the history, acting like we spoke in a Bantu accent back then in slavery times. I don't know what the name of it is, but it's coming out on Apple streaming, and that's all he
hold up.
He's
playing an African.
Yeah, he's playing a slave, but
they really
taking
stretching it with that guy
with our history and claiming that our ancestors spoke in a Bantu accent. And you have films like The Woman King, where they're glorifying West African slavers that enslaved their own people and allegedly sold them into slavery. And it was also a mulatto Bedouin slave play fantasy with the Tyler Perry formula of the light-skinned man is good and the dark-skinned man who's bald-headed is the bad guy. And they now are coming out with a movie that's a sequel to that Black Panther propaganda that came out a few years ago before Chadwick Boseman passed away. And what it is a feminist vehicle of emasculating so-called Latino men and Black men with these characters and pushing the feminist trope of side characters that aren't even main characters to this comic book character story
Yeah,
as the
because if you
main
look at
characters.
you look at the main the poster of the Wakanda Forever, you see it's that Mexican Namor, and then you got
And he's
all the
not
feed.
and the character is not a Mexican, he's a white guy.
Yeah. Then you got all the females, and then you got I forgot the African opposition guy. He's way in the back, tiny. I'm like,
Yeah, his character is called the
Right.
Man Ape, and he's supposed to be a villain, but in the movies they made his character into a good guy. And T'Challa's love interest, she's supposed to be a villain by the name of Malice, and they don't have any children in the comic book. He's
now,
more interested in a blonde-haired, blue-eyed African chick by the name of Storm, who's a mutant.
now you know how long people have been waiting to see Prince Namor on screen, and this is what we get.
Diversity
Right.
handouts.
And, right. In the comics, he's the colored person. And it's amazing that Hollywood takes the credit that we have, everything that we have, they divide it
And
between the other.
what's funny about it is Black Panther ain't even our character. It was created by a couple of Jews by the name of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and like Small Hats or Tengus. They always put an African sugar coating on an American Indian paradigm to convince you that you from somewhere else
Right.
other than the Americas.
But you know what's funny? They
But
also do it about themselves. They
the
try to convince themselves that they're from the Middle East when you know where
Like,
they're really from.
look at the name Wakanda. Is that an African word?
I guess it's African sounding, I guess, to most people. So-
It's an indigenous
Right.
American word for their god that resembles
but
a
the
panther.
the whole
The great
Panther
mystery.
narrative, the whole Panther narrative it was the story of this Panther. It represents something of bravery. Like when you see the images that they put on these football and basketball players, these are when they go to state, they're putting the actual image of these actual things that represent that particular area or
It's
state, right?
symbolic. It's almost like
Right.
Freemason symbology, because if you read the book Playing Indian, they'll tell you ever since they did the Boston Tea Party massacre, or way before they started imitating and mimicking American Indian tribes, they used to put
Mhm.
on blackface. Like, you ever seen the movie Lawrence of Arabia, where they
Mhm.
call the main character
Right.
a filthy little wog? That's short for gollywog. And what is a gollywog? It's a coon doll or Zorte Pete, a Moor.
Right.
They're talking shit about the Africans, the groups of Berbers, Coptics, and Tamazine, those type of peoples that went up into Europe and conquered them for a bit. Well, they were imitating these people that came up there and brought them civilization. And so they brought that information over to here and decided to create a new indigenous American cultures by appropriating the local tribes, such as Tammany and his people. And these are like the Lenape, Hoking, Delaware people that they got with. Those are Turtle Gangs people, and they created several new cultures for indigenous American tribes along the 13 colonies, such as your 5 civilized tribes, like the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminoles. These aren't their real names. These are Scottish corporations.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
a
they're
lot of
white.
it, this also
They're
plays
they're,
into
they're
the holiday Halloween, where they go around dressing up in costumes and stuff like that. They're not doing this to frame
Too many people
Indians during
follow
the
along with that wickedness, you know?
Yeah, they're not doing this because they're trying to frame Indians as committing crimes, because they were clearly seen as white people dressing up like indigenous Americans. They're just doing this for the hell of it. That is why you see this individual by the name of Sachin Littlefeather or Iron Eyes Cody being exposed by their relatives as non-Indian because they perpetuated all their lives as American Indians. But as soon as they got on their deathbeds, all the beans were spilled on them and exposed to the public that they weren't indigenous, but they were a bunch of Europeans pretending to be you. And you let them be you.
You know what? I remember you were talking about the latest Native American scam revealed, but a lot of people don't talk about how Cher used to go and say that she was Native American, half white and half Native American. That was her identity. You look at her in the 60s, that's what she used to do. She was a little darker back then too. I don't know
Yeah,
how.
because I think she has she's like has that gypsy bloodline in her, and that's
But see,
why
now she's
that's another
Armenian. She's Armenian.
Armenian. Well, you know, Armenian gypsy is pretty much the same thing. It's the one drop rule over there. So whenever you got one drop of blood, they just say, "Hey, you a gypsy or you a some other off the wall racial group, right?" Um, a lot of that stuff that they like those people that say this stuff, like these the five civilized tribes, all of them is using the one drop rule to make them have authority over all those tribes. Now the government says you just have to have this percentage. That's why they use blood quantum to find out if they're a part of that tribe.
Now,
So
how is this scientific? Wouldn't this be classified as eugenics?
On what part?
The entire reservation, like qualifications, are not scientific as they postulate to like try any means of getting rid of Negro-ness out of Indianness. They use
I mean, you got to remember what they did. They took the same thing that they did to us today, right? So look at your family. Everybody has a multitude of different, tones of color. So what they did was they start using the color thing, the brown paper bag, that type of thing. Well, you got to remember, in our families, it'd be light skin. Some people call somebody red in the family or yellow, or you know what I'm saying. And then you got the dark skinned people in your family. We all relatives at the end of the day.
Brass ankles.
Right. So they just start when they started classifying people through paper genocide, because a lot of this stuff that we go through today is because of what we allowed them to put on paper. You know what I'm saying? So they start classifying different people based on what they seen. So they'll say, all right, this family is this. This is this person in that family. This is an Indian, or this is a mulatto, or this is a Negro. These different classifications they were doing inside of your family. It was actually identifying people. So when you look at the birth certificates and all this stuff, or you look at the census reports, you might have somebody in the family they put down as Indian, but then all the rest of everybody else is Negro, because they're going by when they walk in that door, they classifying you as what they see. You know what I'm saying?
You know what else though? The census, they tell those census workers, if the people didn't mark anything down, or even if they did, you mark down what you think that they are.
Exactly. So a lot of our problem today is we accepting their paperwork too. You know what I'm saying? We accept the fact that they say, hey, you're black or you're Negro, color, whatever these terms, but everybody else get to accept their nationality or what their ancestors said that they are. Because you ask the average person that we classify as white today, you say, hey, what's your nationality? Or they'll say, hey, I got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm a mutt. They say this. Ask them. They don't even know. So they don't lie
One
so
thing I
much
do
about who
know,
they are.
as long as it's European, they're insinuating white, even if you look like Jimmy Garoppolo. You know,
Right, right,
now you know that guy. Now, come on, you got to be real now.
right.
When you see him, you
Hmm.
don't really think white, but since he's Italian, he can get a
Right,
pass.
So I
right.
would like to
And it's
circle
funny
back.
because
Mhm.
go ahead.
Y'all can
Sorry
finish.
about that.
I'm gonna let y'all finish.
No, I was gonna say it's funny because if you read a book called "A Birth of a White Nation," right? She explains in the book that the status white. Only reason why they came up with that is because they were short women, and what the brothers was doing was when the women was coming around, they was choosing on us because we was fly. You know what I'm saying? And they was like these people that's over here that they bring in here are prisoners. They ain't got no teeth in their mouth. You know what I'm saying? And here we are dressed in our garb, looking nice and everything. You know what I'm saying? So they was choosing on us, right? And they was like, hey, they taking all our women. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, she said the reason why they did it is because they wanted to stop the white women from leaving from marrying the indigenous people here because they was running away from them. You actually can get a glimpse of that in the movie with Mel Gibson. He's showing you how the tribe had a white girl in the tribe. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, how did this white woman end up in this tribe? Well, she had to leave into that tribe. And we was doing this. We're taking these people that was being brought over from Europe. And at that time, you gotta remember, they didn't have the classification white or black, right? So that means the average Englishman could have been mulatto, he could have been black, he could have been white or whatever today in today's terms, or he could have been Scottish or Irish, right? So when these people is coming over here, you got multitudes of different racial groups of people.
You talking about that
And
Apocalypto movie?
no, I'm saying
No, when you said the Mel,
in a time of
when you said the Mel Gibson movie, you talking about Apocalypto?
no, I'm talking about what's the one where the army he's a
Gallipoli,
nah I can't
the
think of it
Patriot,
at the
the
time.
Patriot.
No, the one with
One of
William
those
Wallace.
what right.
William
It's
Wallace.
one of those it's one of the ones where he goes and he
Braveheart,
ends up
Braveheart,
Yeah,
Brave.
Braveheart.
Braveheart where he go
It's kind of funny when you think
no
about Mel Gibson and his racism, how he made Apocalypto and Braveheart and stuff.
mhm, right. And then you see what he did with the movie. He turned it because listen, when the Spanish came into this country, just like the Englishman did, when the Spanish people came into the country and they start
Right.
colonizing, they brought their people.
Okay, we're
So
gonna have
when
to
we
wrap
see
this
these
up
people
because I wanted
today,
Kerry Davis to read off what Fred Hampton wanted to say about Ron Karinga because I wanted to transition into like how Alquan got on Dr. Maat about Ron Karinga being defended and having his Pan Africanism and his crimes like damage controlled.
And did you hear what she said in full, or?
Yeah, I heard everything that you posted on the beginning of your video.
Okay. Wasn't that a shameful thing that she said?
Yeah, she
Shameful.
tried to defend Ron Karinga and turn him into an elder when he's a criminal.
And
And
a
he
woman
brought out the
abuser.
confusion, and he was an FBI agent at that.
Yeah.
and
And he
she
tried to
said that
say,
she don't care. She said
yeah,
she
she
don't
didn't
care
care.
because she said that it wouldn't be a reason for him to come on the show because he was talking about COINTELPRO. Hey, if you're an
But
agent,
he's
it'd be easy for you to
COINTELPRO
talk about
himself.
COINTELPRO.
Right.
But Fred Hampton outed him as COINTELPRO because with that Pan-African stuff, it was meant to get us out of the indigenous American paradigm and to focus on African identity, where we're getting our heads busted in by all circles of the globe. Now, I want
Yep.
Carrie to
And,
That
read
and
was
off this article.
on top of that, though, she's a woman and she is making excuses
For
because
a
this
man
guy
beating up on women
he
with a
tortured,
fucking knife, a fucking
torture,
tonfa, a
torture,
blowtorch,
torture,
and a
have him naked,
toaster.
and she act like the charges were false, but the man did time.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well, yeah.
And he was given like a mental health evaluation, and he was dangerous to society, but they let him out anyway and gave him a PhD.
Yeah. And see, this is
And
how
it,
you know these people are agents.
yeah, and you know what? My studies, I found out that a lot of the movements that were going on at that time, they all um, were under some form of CIA operations. So the heads, these people were in college in these colleges. They were strategists for a lot of the stuff that was going on, as far as the Panthers, as far as the gangs that we see today. A lot of this stuff was already made during the 70s. They were making this to be something that they were going to project into the future for us. And they say, all right, since if we can't Africanize them, then what we would do, we would just crumble their foundation, their family foundation. And what that would do is that will make them fall into a lower class than what they were. Because if you think about it, moving into the late 70s and 80s, we were becoming middle class people. You know what I'm saying? We were becoming very high class people because we were dealing with each other and doing all this different stuff. But at the
And
end of
that
the
crack
day,
cocaine came out, cracking AIDS.
right,
All right.
and you got to remember,
I
where did it come
emailed
from?
you
It
the
came out of the same
article.
place that the Panthers came out of. It came out of the same place that the Panthers came out of, and a lot of the COINTELPRO operatives that we find that was around the whole United States, they all came out of what we call Silicon Valley in that area today. And it's just amazing that we don't see that these people were designed to um to get us to, like the whole African Pan-Africanism and all that stuff. That was to get us to leave here so they can get more authority over the wealth here. We don't know today the cash represents the people. They even say it. We the people. They talking about the actual treasures. If you see like National Treasurer and they show you all these rooms full of gold, and all that stuff is backed up by the people because they don't want to own it. But in order for it, when they say like they talk about Kanye and talk about how much he's worth, well, that's how much we worth. Whatever that value of them treasures that's in this that they have of ours, if we don't claim it, they just go by what they supposedly we own as a people. You know what I'm saying? So again, I didn't mean to go further onto that, but that's just I was just trying to mention that a lot of that stuff has to do with them trying to move us out of this country and them adding these different things that will just kind of crumble our perspective of waking up and coming into our own as our own people. You know what I'm saying?
Now this Karanga, see, I always like to try to get inside the mind of a coon and see what drives these guys. And a guy like Karanga, with the Bunchy Carter thing. See, I always heard about the Bunchy Carter thing as separate from Karanga, and I didn't really know the details on it. But every time I see something on Black Panthers, they always mention Bunchy Carter, Fred Hampton, and New Haven, like you saw in that Judas and the Black Messiah,
Right.
and those seem to be the main events they keep talking about. But see that I noticed when they retell the history, and I got to go blame the small hat because he owns the media. They always separate Karanga from saboteur activity. That's what I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they celebrate him as the creator of Kwanzaa. And then they lie, like Ma'at said, having people say tens of thousands of people celebrate Kwanzaa, and Africans celebrate Kwanzaa. I can guarantee you no Africans celebrate no goddamn Kwanzaa.
And he's also responsible for bringing Swahili, East African language, to Black America as if he was doing something of preserving self or blackness or something like that.
Like we speak Swahili.
Mm-hmm.
Now, get this: you supposed to be an alleged stolen West African. Why are you taking on a language from a different part of Africa? Why are you appropriating South Africans and why are you appropriating Egyptians?
Right.
Unless you're a Freemason.
But don't ask them that question because, they'll cuss you out.
Right.
Now, in this article, I would like Carrie Davis to read. Did you get the email, Carrie?
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
what am I reading?
I want you to read the passage. We're going to move as quickly as we possibly can.
That's at the top of the page.
It's the hold up, wait. 1, 2, 3. It's the third page.
Okay.
It says we're gonna move as quickly as we possibly can. It's in bold letters. We're gonna move.
Okay. Is it at the top?
Yeah. No, it's at the bottom, I think. The bottom.
I don't see that. I see you got Bobby Seale.
Hold up. Yeah, hold up, wait a minute. I'm gonna have to read it then.
Okay, you go ahead.
Well, it says in quotations, we're going to move as quickly as we possibly can for the people with the questions and answers and the people with the guilt syndrome and the people that have been embarrassed and shamed and disgraced. And we've talked about their leaders like Leroy Jones. Could you pull up my screen, please? Carrie?
Yeah.
Could you pull up my screen so the audience can read? Okay, it says, we're going to move as quickly as we possibly can for the people with the questions and answers and the people with the guilt syndrome and the people that have been embarrassed and shamed and disgraced. And we've talked about their leaders like Leroy Jones and Mamalema Karengatang Karenga and a big bald-headed Bazumi. As far as we're concerned, that what he is, and we think that if he's going to continue to wear dashikis and that he ought to stop wearing pants because he looked a lot better in mini skirts. That's all a motherfucking man needs in Babylon. That ain't got no gun, and that's a mini skirt. And maybe he can trick his way out of something because he not gonna shoot his way out of nothing. He won't fight temptation, but he never killed anybody but the Black Panther member. Name somebody. Name me. A time you read about Karengatang's office being attacked. The only time he ever had the occasion to use a gun was the Al Prentice Bunchy Carter, a revolutionary culture. John Huggins, the only time he lifted a gun was against the people. And Huey says in prison, when they lifted their hands against Bunchy, and when they lifted their hands against John, they lifted their hands against the best that Babylon possesses. And you should say that you should feel any time when a revolutionary brother dies, you never heard about the party going around murdering people. You dig what I'm saying? Think about it. I'm not even going to tell you. You think about it for yourself. We started the Black Panther Party in 1966. I'm going to tell you the whole story in a minute. We started dealing with pigs. You think we scared a few orangutans and a few chumps, a few male chauvinists. They tell their women, walk behind me. The only reason a woman should walk behind a faggot like that is so she can put his foot knee deeper in his ass. We don't need no culture except revolutionary culture. What we mean by that is a culture that will free you. You heard your field lieutenant talking about a fire in a room, didn't you? What you worried about when you got a fire in this room? You worried about water or escape. You don't worry about nothing else. If you say, what's your culture during this fire? Water, that's my culture. Brother, that's my culture. Uh, brother, that's my culture. You don't need no fire. You faggot. Hold on, wait. You don't need no water. That's my culture, brother. That's my culture. Because culture, a thing that keeps you. What's your politics? Escape and water. What's your education? Escape and water. When people ask us about our culture, we say our culture's guns, baby. Our culture's revolutionary art like that. And when you see those two brothers who picked up them guns and went out into Babylon in 66, when a lot of us were scared to do anything except look ourselves uh ourselves in the 66 ourselves up in the closet and listen to Coltrane. Ain't that something for you? Whooping a motherfucker's ass, and this turns us on, and this made us black enough that we were bad. Then this made us black enough to get out and launch a blanket indictment at the murder mouth and rest of the black people. Nigga, you ain't got no natural nigga. How come your name ain't changed? Ask the pigs in California, ask them. Who do you fear the most, Ron Mamalama Karenga or Huey P. Newton? Who is named after a demagogue and lying politician, Huey P. Newton? The pigs don't care about that because you don't have, the pigs don't know about that because you don't have to call if your shotgun's Browning. You don't have to give it no African name because believe me, it shoots the same. You understand? It shoots the same. Changing your name is not going to change our set of arrangements. The only thing that's going to change our set of arrangement is what gotten us into this set of arrangements, and that's the oppressor. And it's on 3 stages. We call it the 3-in-1: avaricious, greedy businessmen, demagogic, lying politicians, and racist, pig, fascist, revolutionary cops. Until you deal with those 3 things, then set your arrangements will remain the same. The only difference will be that you're still under fascism, but instead of Fred being under fascism, I'll be Ooga Booga under fascism, but I'll feel the same. Instead of me going to the gas chambers, I'll go to an African section of the gas chamber. So we so Africanized over here that if Africans came over here, you have to give them a catalog to find out what the fuck they were buying. That's right. You have to give them a catalog to find out what the fuck they were buying. You got posters and pictures and names. We're naming things and naming ourselves names and they never even heard of. And we call ourselves Africanized. And ain't that something? You understand? If you're a racist, let me tell you something. Or if you're a reactionary nationalist, white folks run it. Go to South Africa and ask them. Go ahead if you want an example of cultural nationalism. The best one I could give you is Papa Doc, Duliver in Haiti, and black people. We need some blackness. Papa Doc, Duliver said right on. We need some blackness. Let's get all the white folks out of here. Got all the white folks out, and now he's oppressing all the black folks. When the black folks complain about it, he says, well, goddamn, what y'all complaining about now? I'm black. I can't do nothing wrong, brother. We already qualified that. That's why all these apologists like Wesley South come in the air and to rap the sophistries that the sister was talking about that they're hooing, really just rapping about nothing because they're jackanapes in our community, allowed to remain there only because their skin complexion, and we ought to drive them out. Think about it. So that's part of the article that I just read to you. What are your thoughts, Carrie?
The first thing, Fred Hampton, study where he went to grade school and study who were the people who were educating him when he went to grade school. And you will see why a lot of people, including myself, the Black Panther was a CIA setup from the beginning. And so we get emotionally attached to these characters in these stories. We can't see it no other way. The Black Panther was a CIA setup from the beginning. Well, how do you know that? Who what was the
For one, they
hierarchy?
didn't get that. They didn't make up that name themselves. They got it from a battalion over there in World War II.
No,
And before that, they got you
no,
had the Marvel
no,
Comics come
no,
out with the
they did,
name.
no, they didn't. They didn't get it from there. That's what I'm saying. Check out these guys, check out the whole system they had set up. So I'm going to ask you and give me an answer just like you gave me one, the one you just gave.
Who were his people that taught him in school?
No, I mean find that out about Fred Hampton because I know you probably really don't know that. Where did they get the name Black Panther from?
I know I don't know about his education. From
No,
everything I heard, it seemed like he came from the ghetto and just
right. I know. See, that's what but I'm saying you're gonna have to study it. Stop listening to people tell you stuff because they don't know what the hell they be talking about. The
Yeah,
Black Panthers was a CIA setup from the beginning.
I'm going to let you on a little secret because I didn't even know much about any of these black leaders until Uriah Brandon came out with those Boule videos talking about like W.E.B. Du Bois, Stromberg, Marcus Garvey's real intentions. He came out with all these Boule individuals that are mixed blood, but the people that were Freemasons, they were just illiterate unintelligent Negroes that wanted to be a part of something, and they joined these secret fraternities and stuff like that. The hold the Negro consciousness and change our culture for sinister purposes.
now I gotta admit I have heard what you just said about the Panthers being CIA, but I think I like getting a little more specific because the small hats seem to
Well,
be.
I was gonna get specific, but well, you guys go ahead, man.
I was gonna say the small hats seem to be always involved with the Panthers, and the small hat universities always give them honorary degrees and all that kind of stuff, and uh, they get mixed in with the so-called white or liberal revolutionaries. But when you really look at it, they're small hats, and those type of things got me thinking about a lot of
No,
things.
it's not small hats, it's the Negro.
What do you
Because
mean?
one thing the Negro never thinks. Where the Black Panthers come from? Come on, let's
Wait,
go on the
wait,
timeline.
wait,
It wasn't that long ago.
Before they
wait.
were in Oakland, they were in the South, from what I know.
What? Come on, tell me about it.
I forgot. I
I
forgot
know
what state,
that's what I'm saying.
but they brought it over there.
Listen, weren't the Black Panthers, weren't they with the gay and lesbian community?
I
Yes,
never
they
heard of
were.
that.
Huh?
They
I
were
never heard
for
of that.
all people. They was power for the people.
But not in the beginning, though.
Uh, uh,
They became
they didn't last.
multiculturalists.
They didn't last long.
If you
But
notice, is when they got with the small hats. That's
dude,
when things changed.
how long had the small hats been slapping black folks around in this country up until then?
A
Yeah,
long
but see, well,
time.
what they did with the Panthers, though, is they gave them
What
fame.
they do to all of you. You just keep falling for the game over and over and over. Then when you get slapped in the mouth, now you want to blame somebody. No.
Well,
These
there's no blame. It's just that the reality is the small hats are the manipulators of everything
well, okay. So how are you always manipulated?
because we don't have anything. So some people want some things, so they're like, hell, I'll
They
sell out.
they have you. That's how they get their money. They have you. But you have nothing. And this is what I'm saying. This is how we think.
Yeah,
Y'all got to see this stuff. Y'all got to see this stuff. What's happening? Who puts their kids out there to be killed first? What organization that all the children get killed and the leaders, the adults, go on to get government jobs and teaching positions?
we do that.
Who do that?
Military.
Huh?
But we,
Military.
No. The
well, I
Negro
know
does
what
that.
Kerry talking about. He's talking
Oh
about
no, I
we.
can't say the Negro did it. I can say the small hats did
That's
it.
what the Black Panthers did.
But that's what the small hats do in general with their
Yeah,
revolutionaries.
I'm talking about the Negro. What the Negro sent their children out to die, and they went and got jobs in colleges and in
You,
government,
I mean,
right?
are you talking about the Negroes sent their children out to war? You mean, or in the Black Panthers?
Dude, we talking about the Black Panthers.
Well, the Black Panthers weren't really a violent organization until later on.
They weren't what?
They weren't a
They
violent
weren't a
organization.
violent
Dude, hey,
organization
listen,
until
man.
later. Until they got the guns from Richard Aoki, they weren't
uh,
much of a violent.
you better study the Black Panthers, man, because this is what I'm saying. This is how we stay confused. Study the Black Panthers, man, and what they was doing to their people, especially the women. Go read some stories of women who were in the Black Panthers and see what they were treated like. And see, this is the kind of stuff we got to know. We just can't keep yapping and don't know what we talking about because it will confuse the children.
But they had women leaders in the Black Panthers.
Yeah. Kathleen Cleaver, Angela Davis.
So that's good treatment. That sounds like good treatment to me.
Yeah, check out the Black Panthers, man. Check out the Black Panthers.
Matter of fact, I think
Hey, look.
somebody on YouTube just posted Huey P. Newton's one of his last interviews before he got killed. I've been looking into that too, man, because I always thought that was kind of strange. Like, imagine him during the rap era making a comeback, so to speak. You know, now they've been replaced with this new Black Panther Party. And speaking of that, I just found some on YouTube, some old Khalid Muhammad speeches, the King College one, which I'm gonna listen to again because I want to see what it was that made Farrakhan turn Tom on this guy and why everybody turned against the guy after that. Plus, there was a speech when he did at another college with Malik Zulu Shabazz, who's another coon agent, long time coon agent, taken out of college. And it's good to see that kind of thing. I'm glad people put the some of them back on, but it goes to show the development of coon agents. They come out of college, CIA, they recruit out of college. It's a shame though. Black people, that's why you have a lot of these coons like Brother Polite. They would always say things like, we are our own worst enemy. See, then when you really think about what he's saying, he's right. Because he's one of them.
Well, with that, we're gonna have to make a second show because we have to wrap up for the host's sake. So, any last thoughts on tonight's show?
Well, you want me to say something?
Yeah. What are your final thoughts from me, you, and Karen?
Okay. Yeah, I say, these coons are the problem with Black America, and again, that's why I started thinking about what our problem is, and we can easily pinpoint the white man, but it's the coon agents who are the real problem because they're the ones who do the dirty work for the white man to keep us brainwashed. Well, those who are able to be brainwashed. And now you got the Tariq Nasheed taking over and trying to act like he's a political champion of reparations, and he's a Z-list entertainer. He's not even like Dick Gregory class, and unfortunately, a lot of people are getting influenced by this guy and they think that he's going to do something for you. But that's why you got to look at the track records. And then you'll see that this guy is about nothing. And you got to ask, if he can't present his white family members to the public, how can you trust this clown? And with that, we just got to stay on these coons and keep exposing them. And that's what I do when I go on these sites, these channels, and just ask some questions. You ask the right questions, they'll be exposed. That's why Dr. Ma'at, she makes sure that she keeps the questioning short once the first question gets out of hand. She because she's smart. She has an actual PhD, so she knows to back away. But she is in my bullseye. So with that, I'm done. And thanks for having me up here.
All right. Well, I agree with Alquan. We have to question everything. We can't just blindly follow these ideologies that say, "Oh, we gotta get reparations," and what about this white man got his foot on our necks? We really have to do our due diligence and uncover all this misinformation that is keeping us from getting us back to nature, getting us back to our ways, our mores, our folk way, our religion, our spirituality, our culture, our food practices, whatnot, and preserve those. And stop just letting anybody and everybody talk to you emotionally, and just think. Stop and think for a second and question these individuals on why do you think this way, and uncover uh, why are they in misbelief with their own lineage and their own relatives. And I'll pass the mic to Carrie and land my plane.
Um, you gotta the people. You just look at everything at a timeline. And everybody can take a timeline. You can do a 20-year timeline, 50-year timeline, but keep everything in perspective. Because what a lot of stuff that goes on and a lot of stuff that's getting history, you'll see now. They got African Americans. They call them people like Frederick Douglass an African American when he's never even heard the term. So this is how they changed the history up on it. And they changed the history up on it because we don't know what the hell is going on. Study who taught Fred Hampton, how he was raised. I'm talking about because he was like only 19 or 20 when he got killed. So study how he was being trained when he was 8, 9, 10 years old. Very important, because we like to send our kids off to other people to take control of their minds. We should know better than that by now. We don't. We don't care. And if school was horrible for you, and it was, how it is for your children. Who does their children like that? The Negro does. All this stuff we think we know, talk to yourself. Talk to your family. Talk to your uncles, your mamas, your grandmamas, your granddaddies. Go to the places where they lived. Go to Lowndes County, where the Black Panthers got its start from, and talk to the people there. Talk to the people that everybody shuns. Talk to the black sheeps of the family, because those people are normally the ones telling the truth. The ones that's getting the mics and are put on stage, those are your Shaqs and Charles Barkleys and all these other cats that they put in front of you to influence you. The Black Panther would be a good place that you will see. We was just made damn fools out of. And for us to still be talking about these cats like they mean something, they don't. And pass this type of information on to your kids, because as the world right now is imploding, is going to exhale real soon. It's going to be a time real soon when all of this crap you see going on, the people are going to be real tired and explode. Be ready for that, because it's coming. I want to thank all you guys for joining us tonight, hanging with us, listening to what we have to say. I want to thank the brothers for joining us today, giving us information on what's happening out there, because these are the type of brothers that pick up information that I don't be picking up because I'm not in that realm. And so it's good. That's why I have all kind of people on, so they can tell you what's going on. Like what we were talking about last night with that cryptocurrency. I'm not into that shit, but some people are, and they let you know what's going on. Got to start doing for self, y'all. If we don't do for self, other people going to do it for us, and we ain't going to like that. So you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Peace.